What is up, Good Fighters? Listen, guys, today is a special episode. You know why, Dr. Nash?
Talk about that
It's
Fight
because
Club.
we're talking about the Fight Club. More importantly, we're talking about the Fight Club with connection, intention, and purpose. And you can't go wrong with that. So,
No Brad Pitt.
guys, no Brad. Well, I mean, shoot, Dr. Nash, he maybe even better than Brad Pitt. I don't know, man.
You said it, not me.
Dr. Lay would agree, I think.
I hope so.
Hope so. She should, even if it's not true. She should, right?
Right. Just lie to me. Okay.
Right, just lie. Anyways, guys, this episode is for you, the Fight Club. Who came up with this term again? Because if you guys recall,
one of my good buddies, Justin Keith, shout out to you.
Yes,
if and when you're
Justin.
listening to this thing, phenomenal name drop for the supporters, the Fight Club.
Because if you guys remember, we were trying to think of a name for y'all, the supporters, the listeners, the people that make this podcast go round and round. And GFers just didn't sound right. So, no, it did not. So the Fight Club has been born. And this episode is specifically for you guys. First and foremost, from Dr. Nash and I both send a really warm connection, intention, purpose. Thank you to y'all for listening in, listening to just a couple guys who found their way through the Davenport chain to Palmer College of Chiropractic and chiropractic profession. So a couple of good fighters, good old boys, and people who are just trying to do good out there in the world. So thank you guys from the bottom of our hearts.
Yeah, for real. It's still finding our way.
Still finding our way. That's true.
Always a work in progress, but
works in art.
Making that a strength is a key component, I think, to what some of the Fight Club stands for.
Definitely. And if you guys recall, there is a movie called The Fight Club. Is it the Fight Club, or is it?
I think it's just Fight Club.
Fight Club. Okay. Well, from henceforth, you guys are belovedly known as the Fight Club, but not to be confused with the movie Fight Club. Okay. Dr. Nash and I are going to lay out some different things, and we've talked about what makes a good fighter, what makes a bad fighter, what makes a good person that's trying to fight the good fight, and then whatever you guys do, it doesn't have to be chiropractic. But Dr. Nash and I were just talking. He recently rewatched the movie and was like, "Oh, forgot a few scenes."
Not a perfect analogy, not a perfect crossover, but there's a couple.
There's a couple, and you know what? We like to draw from what we can. That's at least in my realm. Draw from what you can and put it into the art that you produce. So, in my opinion, there's nothing that you can't learn from. So that includes Fight Club movie.
I agree with that for sure.
Yeah,
and it's not a perfect analogy, and most analogies are never perfect. So
that's true.
Give us cut us a little bit of slack with this one as far as the connections go between the movie.
But you guys are the Fight Club, and you guys. Well, we're currently in the works. Should we let them know about the potential?
Oh,
I guess we've already talked about it.
Yeah, I think we already have.
In the works of some gear for y'all. And also, Dr. Nash and I are talking about a book. We're soon to be talking about a book. So we're putting some good things out into the universe. A lot of good things for y'all, the Fight Club.
I just thought of, because we've been going back and forth on names. Archives.
I guess you guys will have to wait and see what that's about.
Yeah, we'll see though.
But I like that. Ooh. Okay. Fits the theme.
From the Archives of the Good Fight-ers, I don't know.
Oh, shoot. Name drop.
So I wanted to kind of touch on a few overarching themes of the movie that I think kind of tie back into what makes, how it relates to the Fight Club with us.
Yeah, for sure.
So when they're in the movie, essentially the main character is super unhappy with his life, that he just feels like he's essentially putting on this facade in his job, in his social life, and the things that he identifies with. And he really, the first 20 minutes, he's just explaining his struggle to feel authentic in
Mm.
at the end of the day. That he's like, I bought this furniture and the matching kitchenware set because I identify as this blah blah blah, and like that's what I hope to have like as my identity or represent me. And I think that, and then once he finds his true like authentic ability to like let himself out and like essentially take off his chains of the mask that he's been wearing, then he's truly reached a level of freedom that he had known prior to.
Mm.
And that I think is a big component of what it is to be in the Fight Club, is that ability to free yourself of having to put on a mask for pun no pun intended, for other
Right.
people, right? And
Right.
when you're fighting the good fight, you can't do it from a place of that you're not being somebody who you aren't, right? Because one of the most fundamental things is standing for truth,
Yeah.
and with that, that's the attack on truth, and like the confusion and like the muddying the waters of what truth actually is has been one of the biggest challenges we've had to face in recent years. And it's created such a barrier for people to really just know what is real, what's truth, and what's
Right.
versus what's fiction.
Right.
And that really causes fear in people when they don't actually know what's real and what to believe. And I think, as in the grand scheme of the good fight, a lot of it boils down to standing for what's actually the truth, and what's actually not just what's truth, but who's actually trying to spread the lies.
Mm.
And I know that's one concept for the movie that definitely ties into what it is to be in the Fight Club.
Right. And I want to even take that a hint deeper, because a lot of times nowadays, even if you are speaking truth, you use it as a bullet towards somebody, or you use it as something to almost further the gap from you and them. It can be used as very divisive nowadays, especially, even though it is truth. So one thing that I was thinking of, there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about speak the truth in love. And one thing that I think is important to be a good fighter is speaking that truth in love, because at the end of the day, we don't necessarily want to just speak truth just to continue to hate on people or to continue to divide other people, but speaking the truth to a point where it's like, no, we want the best for everybody that goes through here. And I think that is a mark too that can distinguish us, because it's, not that it's not truth, but it's how we present it too, and what is our main goal as a good fighter,
And
but
not
that
hating other people for coming from a place that they don't really necessarily know.
right.
And more than anything, not that I like it from a point of, I mean, it is a little point of sympathy that I do feel bad for when I see
Right.
people who are really afraid, and that like they're making decisions out of fear,
Yeah.
because fear can be controlled and it can be administered in a way.
Yep.
And that's anybody that, I mean, if you haven't figured this out, people on the news, people on the TV usually don't have your best interest at heart. It's
They're
usually
not
some
speaking the
other,
truth in love.
right. I wish it was, but
Yeah.
90% of it, I would say it's not.
Yeah. Shoot, I would say 99%. Did you say
For sure.
90 or not? Oh, okay. But I love that point that you made too about the authenticity and removing of masks and chains, because I think it's important to, one thing that we've talked about from the beginning till now, is being authentic and genuine, and somebody that doesn't feel like they need a mask or need chains to be able to function through daily life, because in that we never find our optimal self. And you and I both have gone through times of masking and times of keeping our chains, and times of unmasking and breaking our chains off. So I think, can you touch on maybe like some of the freedom that you've experienced, maybe even especially within this past year, because we've experienced a lot, right? A lot of masking, a lot of unmasking.
Yeah.
Just kind of stuff that you felt as being a part of the Fight Club, a good fighter, where you're like making people see the authenticity, the genuine heart that you have.
Sure. One, I wanted to tie back into the Fight Club movie again just a little bit, because when he starts finding his circle of people that actually kind of resonate with not just what he's doing, but kind of what he stands for, a lot of it kind of stems from, just in people in their day-to-day life. And I know this for me too, where there's uh there's this feeling of like that's it, or like
Mm,
that's all, like that's my purpose, right? And like when you're lacking that, or that purpose and fulfillment super empty, it's
right.
really really hard to do that day in and day out, I think, consecutively. So I know for me, uh, opening up the clinic, the practice here, that was the greatest blessing of all. And with that, the stakes were high. I mean, the stakes have never been higher anyway.
Right.
Regardless if you own your own practice, you work for somebody else, you're not even a chiropractor, doesn't matter. Stakes are as high as they've ever been when
Mm,
it comes to being an American, or even, just a human on this earth.
true.
Because even for what the country was founded on and stands for is being attacked, and people are really trying to tear that down. And
Mm,
um, I know for
everywhere.
me, those stakes being elevated was liberating. That like there is no second try, or like it's just what's the go big or go home, right? Like in that mentality where like I it's succeed or die, or
Yeah.
there is no second option. That is like one of the most liberating things ever. And in the
Yep.
movie, there's this portion where they go on, do these quote unquote, and please, if you're going to listen to this, listen to the full extent, because this is going to sound bad, right? Rolling off the tongue, but they do these human sacrifices. And I did not remember this portion, but watching it, I'm super happy I did. Because what they would do is they would just go, like, for instance, they show one scene where they go up to this gas station, and main character has his gun pulled out, brings the only guy working the cash register out back, tells him empty his pockets, has him on his hands and knees, like gun on the back of his head, asks him like these questions, like deep questions about like, um, like what was he doing? Like basically trying to figure out like why, how did you end up working as a cashier at this gas station, right? Like
Mm,
this couldn't have been your dream. What's your dream? And he's like, the dude's just fearing for his life. He's like, I don't know, stuff, and like obviously proceeds to keep kind of interrogating, scaring him. And he's like, oh, I wanted to be a vet. And he's like, well, why'd you stop? He's like, well, school is expensive. And basically, human sacrifice was putting this person, like, essentially having them feel like this is going to be like these are going to be your last breaths.
right.
And then giving that back to them, that you have the rest of your life to, there's no reason why you don't go pursue your dream. And he kind of hammers home. He's like, yeah, and we'll be watching you. Make sure that if you're not, on the route to becoming a vet in 6 months, we'll kill you or whatever.
Pull the
Right.
trigger. Yeah.
So in the context of the movie, don't kill anybody, but
Hope we never had to say that.
no, but I really loved that was where that ended up, flipping the script as far as the human sacrifice goes, because in a way they're reborn somebody new, or somebody that they
Right.
should have been all along. And I think that's something that a lot of people unfortunately never have the blessing to experience, or the blessing to you know kind of have that phoenix phase, where we kind of talked about in
Yeah.
the past, where you're kind of reborn out of
Right.
the ashes. And when you come from that place, there, you just have a whole nother level of why and conviction to fulfill that why.
Yeah.
And you really can be somebody who's unshakable or unstoppable in your pursuit to your greater why. And I really love that portion too, because I mean that's what we try to do every day. And it may not, it's coming from a different place, but we kind of have the same goal in mind, that like you don't have to, like, why, like you don't have to muffle your own authenticity. And especially with health, you don't have to be dictated, and you don't have to be controlled to do these certain things if they don't align with what you truly believe.
Right. Boom. Shoot.
Good
That was
scene.
money, dude. Yeah. And it's something that too, and I know we talked about before, like we touched on this, like what if you had to get something done, or you always strive to do something, what would it look like if you had 3 days to do it?
Yeah.
What would it look like if you had to go just all out, go all in, and get your message out, get your, who you are out? 'Cause I think many of us, if we had that mentality, we'd be living life a lot different. If we had a
Yep.
gun to our head and we were given that opportunity, we'd be living life a lot different. And I pray that none of us are in that situation, but well, would it be figuratively? I hope we are. I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
for sure. And
Figuratively, as such as a practice or a kid. All these kinds of things that produce discipline, produce. Uh, you got to make it or make it. That's your only
right,
option.
and with that, like, I don't. There is no like second. Well, I could go like you know be a. I could go roof for a living or something like that for me. Like this is it, right?
Right.
And yeah, I know that like if that if I don't apply myself and commit to it, that there is fallout from that. But like um, that's something that where you can't be afraid to pull the trigger, and
Yep.
you're never gonna like nobody can predict the future. So being able to let go of that concept of control, where I've been reading a little bit more on. I mean, I never really understood the concepts behind what living or like not just living, but embodying masculinity is in a sense, but a lot of it is around control.
Yeah.
And actually, coming from a place of surrender and actually a place of acceptance is really more on the feminine side of it. And I think that's something that a
Right.
lot of people really struggle with, and that's talked about a lot is that ability to surrender. And that's just one of the greatest gifts of opening a practice is it requires a certain aspect of surrender that you need to have.
You need to have that surrender, and you also need to have like the humility to understand that in that surrender, you're making a decision, and sometimes that decision has to be based upon your environment. That's as a whole. You don't
Yeah.
have complete control. You don't have complete say. I mean, you have the choice of how you're going to respond, but sometimes things just happen. Um,
Well,
yeah,
and
that's a great point.
and whatever you want to call it, hashtag the saying of trust the process. That is one and the same. That to surrender yourself to the process of like
Right.
um, putting the work in, and in that actual event of doing the work is enjoyable,
Right.
and that part of the process, like to trust that work that you're going to put in day in day out, that it's a reset every single 24 hours, right? Like um
Well, and to trust that the outcome is going to be what you're looking for.
yeah,
The outcome is what you've desired, and knowing that you've put in that work to produce it
yeah.
for sure.
Andy Frisell talks about, but winning has no memory, right? It has no
Right. Yeah.
solicitude for the structures in which it is
Right.
is held. I think that's principle 11. Hope so.
You should know that.
I know.
I'm just kidding. I don't know. Off the top of my head, at least.
Yeah, it might be 13. I don't know. I can't remember.
Right.
But it's. I mean, it comes back around to the universal forces have no solicitude for the structures in which they inhabit. Which, like, universal forces don't care if you're a great person or if you're a
Right.
bad person, right? Yep. So that's where I was going with trusting the process.
Good.
Well, back to talking about trusting the process. So, Gates, I don't know if so. We were talking a little about before on just our reception of the movie, right?
Right.
And a lot of it kind of delves into a split personality, and I think
Mm.
that there's. I mean, I can always relate to something like that because there's always, in my eyes, flip side of the coin, dark side of the moon, whatever yin to
Yeah.
yang, that
Yeah.
um, that I think is also a really huge gift that not a lot of people understand or see it as a gift all the time. And that duality that we've talked about a lot before, that plus and minus,
Yeah.
for life there's death, and over the period of time, we all have some sort of end game, and that's okay. Like
Mm.
that's also a liberating thought as well,
Yeah.
because the only thing we have on this earth is time, and what are you going to do with it
Right.
when you're here?
I can't remember if we talked about this or not, but there's that you mentioning that duality, and maybe it's just something we talked about. Is there's that Native American proverb where it talks about each person has essentially two wolves that make them. You can either, which, there's a good wolf or there's a bad wolf, or they have some other names that I can't remember off the top of my head. But whichever one you feed is the one that will continue to grow. Whichever one you continue to put your effort into will be continuing to grow. And like you said, there's that duality, which is, many people wish there wasn't a duality, but in a duality, we see character. We see people that are working towards building up and living the life that they want to live based on which wolf they feed.
Yeah.
And as a portion of the Fight Club, in that sense, he came to the conclusion of, essentially he wasn't feeding either wolf, right? But then he came to the conclusion, hey, I'm going to feed this wolf and that wolf at the same time, and look how it turned out. He had that duality of like, it wasn't him. You can't feed both at the same time. It's not possible. Otherwise, you have a breakdown. There's no benefit to it. So, when you're going over things like that, you're talking about people needing to build character, people needing to build up different things about themselves that they can produce better outcomes. You always have to look back at how are you fighting and which wolf are you feeding in that time period.
Bro, for real. Final thoughts, Gates? Do you have any before we wrap it up on this quick episode today?
I think, guys, just you guys are if you've made it this far as listening goes, continue to execute, continue to implement, because it's very easy to listen to, and I do this myself. And I don't know about you, Dr. Nash, but we tend to listen to something great and we forget over time. So continue to execute, continue to implement, continue to fight the good fight through not only the Fight Club, but also your everyday life, where you're able to put this into practice and influence others. This is one of those things where, I guess this is the opposite rule, where instead of you don't talk about Fight Club, it's you talk about Fight Club.
For sure.
Share these with your friends, share these thoughts and ideas that we talk about on here with your friends, and see what kind of circle you're running with.
Love it. Last thought for me: in the battle between the stream and the rock, the stream always wins, not out of sheer power or force, but out of sheer persistence. So trusting the process and surrendering to that work effort, that hey, today I'm gonna have to put some work in. Beautiful. The friends do every day anyway, right?
Yep.
Get up and be thankful for that 24 that you got, because not everybody has that. So
yep.
Thank you, Good Fighters. Dr. Nash Dopco, DC Nash D on Instagram, at @the_good_fight_ers, and Dr. Gates. What's your hashtag?
__ DC. Gatesmayor _DC.
You know how to find us, reach out to us, and thank you, Fight Club.
Hit us up for anybody you want on the episodes too.
Ooh, good point.
Real quick.
Yep.